Okay, so the year was 2001. My dad had just died, and I don't think 9/11 happened just yet. I was getting dropped off at some kind of daycare by my mom, and she had to like work and study. She was going to school and working. She's an amazing mom. She's great. And I remember them playing movies for the kids. And I also remember that I didn't want my mom to leave just yet. I really was not a huge fan of her being anywhere further than maybe 10 to 20 feet away from me at any given time. And this particular point of the day, I would be away from her for 10 to 20 minutes at the minimum, probably around an hour. And I missed my mom during this time. But the one thing that they always managed to get my attention with were the movies. You could put any kind of little toy in front of me or games or whatever, but it was really just the movies that they would show us that really had me kind of just staring at the screen the whole time, just being totally mesmerized by that. The one that really stands out and comes to mind for me is the movie Tarzan, Jungleman. It's fucking stupid. Tarzan is a great movie. I really like this movie a whole lot. I think that there is a lot to enjoy about it. Everything from the characters to the music to the story to the animation. I think it all holds up today still. And that's why I found it worth my time, maybe some of yours too, to talk about it a little bit. Mostly a bit of a review kind of standpoint that I'm throwing at this movie. It's not anything, I think, groundbreaking that I'm going to say. Not much that people don't already know. I'm a bit of a layman, I think, with this kind of stuff. I'm not really like a film specialist or something, if that's even a word. But I do believe there are some good things about it that I think are worth revisiting even today, here in 2022. And I also want to make it clear that there are obviously going to be spoilers in this review of the movie. If you're wanting to maybe get a bit of a non-spoilery end summary, kind of a small sum up of the movie, I think I just kind of... Damn. Sorry, I'm in a hotel and the people who clean around here are really loud. They just doing their jobs though, bro. I ain't mad. If you want like a spoilerless kind of sum up of the movie, just go ahead and skip to this part of the video and I'll go ahead and explain it there. Hope you guys enjoy. This is my first video on this channel, so I'm really glad you're here. Love you. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna be tackling this whole thing in about 4 parts: the characters, the plot, the music, and the animation. It may or may not be in that order. I don't really think that's important. But I do think all 4 of these things I really want to cover and talk about. There's of course more things I could elaborate on, but I don't think they're super important to what is really keeping this movie going and why it's still loved and watched today on different Disney platforms. Is there just the fucking one? Just Disney Plus? Just that? I mean, that's what I watched it on. So I feel most appropriately as the first thing to talk about would be the plot. I think the plot is pretty good. I think that there is a lot of little aspects to it that are... There's a few things that I think aren't really touched on all that much, but not a whole lot, I think, is really left me wanting more. I think it really does deliver on most of the things that it was trying to do. So I'm going to just kind of summarize the plot up really quickly, just so we kind of have an idea on that. The plot starts off with Tarzan's parents being shipwrecked and also showing, just really briefly, just kind of the harshness of the jungle a little bit, because the mama gorilla, we'll call her that for now, ends up losing her baby to the big cat. And the humans are struggling against nature in their own way by the time they end up stranded on the island as well. The mama gorilla, who has recently lost her little... What do you call baby gorillas? Like, is there like a name? You know how like goats are called kids and like cats are called kittens and shit? Is there like a name for like baby gorillas? I don't know that. Anyway, she ends up hearing... What the fuck? She ends up hearing little baby Tarzan screaming his little head off. And she goes to see what's up with that. I'm assuming her ears are probably pretty attuned to that because she just lost her little baby. But, I mean, that's not explored in the movie. That's just what I think. She ends up going to rescue him from the same big cat that took her baby earlier. And Kerchak, who is the patriarch of the entire group, is kind of giving her a hard time about keeping him. But through some convincing, she ends up managing to let him not necessarily consider Tarzan his son or anything, but he'll let him stay in the tribe. I say tribe, it just feels appropriate. Just after this, Tarzan grows up to be a boy, and he's become pretty good friends with another gorilla named Turk, who kind of looks out for Tarzan. And through this, we learn that this little bit of the movie is really interesting, I think, to see Tarzan as a child. Kind of sets up a little bit of, I think, his aims and goals in the movie. They're not, maybe aims and goals isn't exactly the word I'd use, just kind of things that are helping to develop who he becomes later and why I think he does what he does to some extent. And those things in the future stem from him being a bit of an outcast in the group of gorillas because he's always kind of having to try to prove himself a little bit, especially when the other kid group of gorillas, teens, fucking, I don't know, they're like middle schoolers, it feels like. And Tarzan seems to be like, he's maybe like 10. They're telling him that he needs to score like a hair from an elephant to join the group. And that's obviously extremely fucking dangerous.
Are you sure this water's sanitary? It looks questionable to me. It's fine, honey. But what about bacteria?
And he does it anyway, and Turk is feeling a little guilty about it. I think that just after this, there's the part where he is kind of outcast because of all the commotion that he creates in this little stunt to get the elephant hair. He's kind of, a little bit rejected and feels that way and just kind of runs away, as we've all probably done as kids in some way. And Kala comes to, she's the loving mother. She's very sweet. Probably a good part of why he's such a, I don't know, I think kind of like a little prankster when he grows up and, just has a bit of a warm side to him. She comes up to him and she comforts him and loves on him and lets him know that he's, that they're actually more alike than they are different, that they have 2 eyes and a nose and a mouth and hair and, just being kind of adorable, being his mom and caring for him. After this, we get a bit of a montage of Tarzan beginning to grow up over time, and we see that he's swinging from vines and finding new innovative ways to do things that gorillas were already doing or were even struggling to do in the beginning. Sorry, I want to pop my knuckles. I'm the knuckle popper, bitch. I'm the knuckle popper, bitch. Why is that so fucking funny right now? We get bits and pieces of Tarzan's life after he grows to be an adult by this point, of him kind of just going through maybe the motions in some way. I don't know how to put that, just kind of like little, just showing his life up until not much longer, where the big cat from earlier, Sabor, ends up going to attack Kerchak and the group. And in the middle of this fight, Kerchak ends up getting a bit wounded, but Tarzan kind of steps in and actually ends up fighting the big cat and winning. He uses this as a chance to prove himself to Kerchak and the group, and this really triumphant moment is interrupted by the sound of a shotgun ringing out through the entire jungle. Upon investigating this shotgun sound, he comes face to face with his first human being, who we come to know as Clayton in the movie. After Clayton, there are 2 more, Jane and the professor. I do not remember his name. I have him down here as Professor Daddy, because that's who he is, I believe. He's Jane's father. Not too long after this, Jane ends up getting into trouble with some baboons, and Tarzan swoops in to save her from this. They begin to kind of get to know each other, and later on, as they're meeting up, the humans are trying to actually see the gorillas. That is actually why they're there. Jane and the professor and Clayton are there for researching the gorillas, but it becomes quite clear that Clayton actually wants nothing really to do with studying, but wants to hunt them down. Not long after meeting these human beings, Tarzan goes back to his group and talks to Kerchak about them, and Kerchak tells him to not really interact with them. He doesn't want to see them, and he doesn't want them to see the gorillas. Tarzan neglects about half of that and spends time with the humans anyway, and he starts to learn different things about human culture from specifically London, but there's also little bits and pieces, I believe, from my memory, of other places, but it seems like that's just kind of what it's mostly around, just because that's where Jane and friends are from. In this time, Jane ends up falling in love with Tarzan, and Tarzan ends up falling in love with her. It's pretty cute. They end up having this is basically another montage of time passing on as they are just kind of learning from each other as Jane begins to learn a little bit of the jungle, as well as him learning a little bit more about what's beyond that. Eventually, Jane's boat arrives to pick up the gang and calls the trip over. They didn't learn a whole lot that they were hoping to learn from gorillas. They really hadn't actually seen any. They'd only really interacted with Tarzan since they were there. Naturally, Tarzan nor Jane are really ready for their time to come to an end, but Clayton, obviously noticing their dynamic, really wants to see these gorillas. He convinces Tarzan to show them to the gorillas, or at least show the gorillas to them, so that they have a reason to stay longer. Tarzan agrees, and he actually ends up breaking Kerchak's rule about, letting them find where the gorillas are. He ends up leading them to the gorillas, and it's overall a pretty good interaction. At a certain point, Clayton ends up getting, I think, surprised or hurt or something like that. He ends up aiming his shotgun at one of the other gorillas, and Kerchak sees this and begins to attack Clayton. Kerchak, also having been distracted to pull him away from this whole situation, ends up coming back a little earlier than they'd planned, and that's kind of why this is a big issue. These are like the two big boys, the big daddies of the groups, about to fight each other, and Tarzan actually has to strangle's the wrong word I would use, I guess. He has to kind of chokehold Kerchak to keep him from killing Clayton outright. After this whole ordeal, Kerchak basically says that Tarzan has betrayed them, and it is in this moment that Tarzan goes off to be by himself once again. Kala goes to comfort him, as she does, and she kind of shows him his origins and a place where he came from and where she found him that has all the old belongings of his parents, and even a picture of them together, as well as that picture including a picture of him as a little baby. Cute little baby Tarzan, little jungle man, little jungle baby. Upon learning all this, Tarzan decides he wants to leave the jungle and go with the humans to just kind of not cause any more trouble for the gorillas, but also to kind of still be with Jane and go learn and see new things. And it is after this moment he comforts Kala, who obviously does not want him to go just yet, with telling her that he'll always be her son, no matter it is where he goes. It is this part of the movie that made me pause the movie and call my mom, just because I'd recently just moved from my mom, maybe like a few months ago, and I wanted to talk to her. So I don't know. You guys should pause this video and do the same thing. Okay, did you call your mom? Great. If you didn't, fuck you. Just kidding. Love for the mamas out there. Okay, where the fuck was I? Okay, so after Tarzan and Kala have their goodbye, Tarzan suits the fuck up. I'm sorry, I think he does this before he comes out. I'm not looking at anything right now. But yeah, anyway, he ends up he ends up suiting the hell up, and he goes off to be with the humans. The elephant and the gorilla that he's befriended are certainly going to be missing him. They're kind of watching him go. And right before they're about to set sail, it becomes really apparent that I actually got to stop right here. Okay, cool. Sorry, I had to go to work, so it's tomorrow now. I'm going to keep going from where I left off. So right before they set sail, it becomes really apparent that Clayton and his crew are actually not in their best interest in any way. They're looking to actually like capture and hold them while they go off to hunt the other gorillas down. This betrayal sends Tarzan into a bit of an emotional frenzy, I guess. He yells and screams and throws a tantrum. His scream ends up drawing the attention of his gorilla and elephant friend, Tarkin the elephant. I don't know the elephant's name. To come to their rescue, and they actually managed to break them out. Not long after this, Clayton and goons end up capturing a bunch of gorillas. The gorillas do their best, I think, to fend them off, but Tarzan eventually comes back with his homies. That's the elephant, Professor Daddy, Jane, homeboy Turk. They're fighting back as best they can. Amidst the chaos, Kerchak and Clayton get into it, and Clayton ends up critically wounding Kerchak. Tarzan and Clayton end up fighting each other up in the trees, and Tarzan has a chance to kill Clayton, but doesn't take it. And when the roles are reversed, like seconds later, Clayton definitely takes his chance to kill Tarzan. In doing this, they end up kind of getting entangled in the vines a little bit, and Tarzan does get cornered, but Clayton starts kind of trying to swing at him while he's stuck in the vines. And upon doing this, Tarzan is trying his best to keep him from, continuing, because he's going to see that he can tell, he knows the vines in and out. He can tell that Clayton's basically about to end up getting himself killed. Clayton, of course, isn't listening, and he continues to swing at Tarzan and has no idea exactly what it is that he's doing to himself. Fuck, I'm popping my knuckles while I'm talking. And this results in Clayton's death. Probably one of the more brutal deaths we've seen in a Disney movie. I think we'll come back to this a little later. After everything's said and done, Tarzan goes over to Kerchak to check on him, and they all know that he's living his last few moments here and now. In these last moments, Kerchak tells Tarzan basically three main things: that he was wrong about him, that he accepts him as his son, and that he's going to be leaving the group of gorillas to him, and he leaves him in charge of them. After Kerchak passes away, Tarzan disappears into the jungle with the rest of the gorillas, and we cut to him saying goodbye to Jane and the Professor Daddy the next day at the beach. And it is on their the little boat that paddles you out to the main ship. I don't know what that's called. Jane realizes she actually wants to stay behind with Tarzan. She realizes this alongside Professor Daddy realizing he wants to stay in the jungle as well. They end up sailing back, and she and Tarzan are happily in love. Everybody's happy. They're traversing the jungle, in style and grace, and they're being hella cute. And then they do a nice little action pose at the end, and with a nice little... So the movie is pretty good. I think that I liked the general things they're trying to get across with the movie. To me, it seems a lot like almost two things. It seems like it's the struggle of becoming a man and leaving your family for, pursuing a woman. Or it could be a woman, entering the jungle, a place she's never seen before, and maybe engaging with like total chaos, all in the name of love. I don't really know if it's both of those, but that's kind of some hints I get about the story. I don't really feel like it's not that, but I feel like it's also somewhat more than that. Where I think the characters kind of succeed is in kind of putting on display the lessons that they hold for Tarzan. Each individual character is kind of a lesson in and of themselves for Tarzan, which I think it makes for pretty good characters most of the time. I'd like to think that those were implemented fairly well. That's probably the best part about this whole story. We'll get into the characters here in a little bit. I think I might address them by what they mean to Tarzan more so than anything. I will say the plot is a little aimless, like not entirely. I don't know if that's really a good or bad thing, to be honest with you. I feel like it's honestly kind of, it just happens just a little bit. There's no like, we need to do this or we got to do that. If it was told more from like maybe Jane's perspective, that would be the case. We have to go study the gorillas. We have to answer to like our shareholders in London or something like that. Again, that's not ever explicitly said in the movie, but like that would probably make for a more direct motivation or goal. But most of the motivations here are, I love these people or I don't like these people. And that's kind of where I feel like the plot is maybe a little lacking. The only person who seems to really have like a direct goal and motivation would be Clayton, weirdly enough, I think. Everybody else is kind of just trying to keep the status quo to some extent, except for, of course, Tarzan and Jane, who are trying to be with each other. But I think as far as the plot goes, that's probably the only thing I can really say that I think's a little shitty about it. Or I don't know, so I say shitty, but I really don't know if that's really a good or bad thing. Because I still enjoyed the movie for sure, but I think I might enjoy it for the characters and their interactions and the music and the animation. But the plot itself is a little, it's like all right. I won't call it shitty, but I think that is something I personally found just slightly lacking in the movie. Maybe that's just personal taste, but that's just what I think about it. There were a few things I believe were a little just not really thought out that came up in the movie, like things that don't, maybe they're not that important to the story of everything and the characters, but they're just a little, like, to me it was a little bit like, what the fuck, like what kind of sense does that make? The first thing in my opinion would be, so when Clayton goes to meet the gorillas for the first time and Jane and her dad are there, there's a part where the monkey angers Clayton or like startles him. Like I mentioned earlier, he points the gun at the monkey and Kerchak like flips out over this. He's like, oh my God, my man's he's in danger, bro. There's a shotgun aimed at him. But like Kerchak doesn't know what a shotgun is. Like how would he know that? Is that making sense? Like why the fuck would he know what that is? Maybe it was just the aggression or something. I don't know. To me, like that just really caught me off guard. Like I was like, does Kerchak know what a shotgun is? Like why would he know that? Maybe there's like some backstory someone wrote down somewhere that's like, well, Kerchak actually had previous encounters with human beings and that's why he's so scared of them. But like, dude, I don't fucking know that. The movie doesn't communicate that in the fucking slightest. I doubt that that's actually the case. Another little thing that kind of tripped me up just a little was when Professor Daddy and Jane decide that they want to go back to the jungle. The professor tells the guy rowing the boat not to come back or tell them that they never found them or something like that. And I was like, whoa, like you're really just going to like ditch your only way back home? Like that's how serious this is to you guys? Like, I don't know if I would have done that, to be honest. Like I mean, again, it's me and I'm not the professor, but it just seemed a little like, you really want no one to come back here ever for you? Like that seems a little much, man. You're probably going to die on this island then. You will die here. You're an old man. Then there's of course the issue of Tarzan and Jane being now two human beings who can produce offspring and have no other human beings to interact with. I think that speaks for itself on how that shit just doesn't make any sense, bro. Like when you have kids, where are your kids gonna go for? Like, I don't know. Maybe I think that's just me thinking a little too far into it, a little bit. The movie is a little self-contained. So I heard that there's like sequels at least. I don't really care, honestly, to watch any Disney sequels. I just don't. I normally have found that they're kind of ass. There's certainly no Shrek 2, I would say. But I do think that there's just like, I don't know, this drop in quality with most of them. But for the sake of this movie, I think there's only a few of those little things that really pull me out of the story a little bit. And I'll touch on a few things that do so in a different way in both the music and the characters that I'm about to discuss here in a little bit. But so far, that's the plot for me. Now we're going to be going into characters. Okay, so the characters I'm going to talk about in this movie are Tarzan, our main character, Kerchak, the father figure, Kala, the mother figure, Turk, the best friend, Jane, the love interest, Clayton, the main antagonist, Professor Daddy, another side character. First off, Tarzan. Tarzan grows to be quite a clever and capable ape. He cares for his family and his friends, but he's also quite the jokester and prankster. I like his personality in those little moments that he has with his mother, or his love of the jungle, I guess is the way you could put it. He kind of has this interesting way of getting around that literally nothing else in the jungle does. And he's quick on his feet. He's kind of curious and loves to express these things both with his actions, but as well as his face. I like that they did that stuff with his face. They add a lot of facial features and stuff like that to him, specifically when coming from the point of view of the other human characters, because he doesn't speak English, at least not at the beginning, and definitely not what I'd call well by the end of the movie, which I think is, realistic. Like, he quite literally isn't learning any of that stuff back in the jungle. I think that he has a lot of good qualities to him. I don't really know what his character flaw would be, to be totally honest. I want to say that it might be his naivety. Like, he's just kind of expects people are having their best intentions, and I think that that's probably the only one that I can think of. It's kind of a pretty pure and innocent little character flaw that I think suits him well, considering he wasn't really growing up anywhere near human civilization, and human beings are, at least in my opinion, quite literally the only like species on the planet that are genuinely capable of evil. But that makes total sense to me, that's kind of like where he'd fall short in some way. He's very physically capable. He's really pure of heart for the most part, and he's just very interested in new things, you know, very curious. And I think that makes him quite the protagonist to follow. He's not anything special, to be honest. I don't really think he's like a groundbreaking character or anything like that. He's honestly kind of plain. Like I said, I like the fact that he's such an innocent dude, and he's kind of a kid at heart, but he genuinely is, you know, he's kept that childlike curiosity. But it's basically all he is. In my opinion. There's the people he loves and he cares about them, and he'll do what he can to protect them and things like that. The only time I really can say that I think he actually, there's like a bit of you get to really learn about him is when Clayton betrays him. I think that's when you kind of begin to sort of see a little bit like a new side of Tarzan. But overall, he's kind of the same dude the whole movie. And I think that makes him a little plain, but it's not so bad you can't follow him throughout it. Especially when he's in our protagonist, we will be spending the most amount of time with him. After Tarzan, I want to talk about Kerchak. So his father figure is more of a conservative patriarch for the gorillas. That's probably the best way to put that. I think that he is a pretty one-note character for the most part. That's kind of his job, though. I mean, quite literally, he's a conservative patriarch. His whole thing is quite literally to just conserve the traditions and standards of the group. That's what it seems like. He kind of just has a lot of weight and say in what everybody does, and I think that specifically is why he is the way he is because it's his job to protect everybody in the family, everybody in the tribe. So he makes a lot of sense. I like that about him, and it makes complete sense that someone as curious as Tarzan serves as a bit of a threat to what he's trying to conserve in the group. That's why they're a little bit at odds throughout the movie, even though it's quite clear Tarzan has a huge amount of respect for Kerchak for this purpose, but also has a bit of an edge in their relationship. I think Kerchak also has a bit of a pretty interesting perspective change at the end of the movie. He definitely uses those last few words to talk to Tarzan, and I think that shows a lot of respect and love and admiration for someone he genuinely considers his son by that point. So it was honestly really touching to see that part. I think that's kind of weird that like the most touching part of the movie was actually from like Kerchak to Tarzan for me, as opposed to Kala or Jane would be to Tarzan. I think that's just because of how naturally that plays out between the two people. I think that so I didn't mention this in Tarzan's character analysis, I guess is the word I'll use. Kerchak's voice actor, so Tarzan's voice actor at least, I don't remember the name, but he's fine. Like, he doesn't do anything special. He's not like, you know, you just kind of like enjoy the movie. Like, he's not really distracting or anything like that. He's also nothing like amazing. You know, like, we're not like, oh my god, I'm really pulled into the movie by this performance. Kerchak's a little different. I find him to be pretty good, but there's points where it seems like the actor is like a little forcing it. Like, it seems like he's like, Tarzan, like he's just like pissed. I'm like, bro, like, can you just like get mad? It sounds a little forced once in a while, but it's not so bad that you can't connect with Kerchak. As I just mentioned, that he's, in my opinion, he kind of has one of the most like touching moments of the movie. So that was something that stood out for me about Kerchak. After him, we have Kala. And so Kala is like, I have her down as Mama in my notes. She's Tarzan's basically his mother. And she is definitely the more caring side of him. She's the more resilient and I think matriarch of the group. A lot of people seem to have just as much respect for her as they do for Kerchak. They definitely are going to be listening to Kerchak at the end of the day. He's definitely one that sets the rules, sets the tone, puts his foot down, says no a lot more often than I think Kala would. But she is definitely like the heart of the operation for the most part. She is there for Tarzan when things get rough. I would imagine she does the same for everyone else in her group. And I think that adds a lot of layers, to her character, and it's definitely, I think, like necessary. I don't think the movie would be the same without her in any way. I think that the performance done for her is done well. It's very soft and very kind, and I think that suits her perfectly. She's certainly no wimp. I wouldn't say that. She's not someone to shy away from things that frighten her, to do something she believes is right, as we see in the very beginning of the movie. And I think that it makes a lot of sense that she is Tarzan's mother more than anyone else would be. So Turk is the best friend to Tarzan. He's kind of like the right-hand man for the most part. He's a pretty outgoing friend who kind of acts like he doesn't really give a shit about anything, but really cares for his friends. He cares for Tarzan seemingly like a brother. If I had to give Tarzan a sibling, it would definitely be Turk. And quite literally because there's like nobody else. We'll get to that. I think that Turk is kind of obnoxious. I don't know about the character in of what they were trying to do with him for like the story, but I think that he is slightly underdeveloped. Maybe that's the word I want to use. I feel like, or maybe just underutilized. I don't know if like we need more character development from Turk, but he's kind of almost like pointless. Like when I think about the movie and why it's important and why it's still watchable and why it was watchable in the back in the day and why it was such a big deal. And if it was, I mean, it wasn't like a giant deal, but it was like, well, everybody kind of knows Tarzan. I would say I don't really know what purpose Turk serves other than some form of comedic relief, but he's not that funny. Is like that, like not to shit on the boy, but like, bro, like just shut up, shut the fuck up. I really didn't find it to be anything special. I think that the performance from Rosie O'Donnell was a little much. I really just didn't love it. Which is weird because I looked up like some stand-up comedy from Rosie O'Donnell on her own. Like I was like, maybe she's funny, just the script wasn't. She's not bad. Like I was actually kind of like laughing a little bit. And I think that that's why I was a little surprised. I was like, that's weird. Because, like, I mean, if I can kind of get kind of a good laugh or a chuckle out of me, maybe it'll translate over. I don't know what really happened. I think she was trying so hard to just be big. Maybe. Like, no pun intended, bro. But I think she was just trying her best to be, like, the star of the show. And it's like, bro, like, you're not. And also, like, Turk is just written to be almost, like, less important than he could be. I guess. I don't know. I just found it difficult to really care about Turk, and which sucks because I kind of wanted to, like I kind of wanted to care about Turk, even though his voice is a little annoying. There's a certain thing I want to go back into later about him, but that's going to be on the more music side of things. Guessing you can tell where that's going. Up next is the love interest, Jane. Jane is educated and a clever noblewoman. I think she's driven mostly by her curiosity and compassion. Her love and curiosity of nature is definitely well complemented with her energetic spirit, and she's quite the amazing artist. The things we learn about Jane are, I think, kind of amazing. I think that her character is development the word I want to use here? I don't think so. Just the way that they kind of show you what kind of person she is, I think they do a really good job of that, especially with her being, like, literally coming with the main antagonist. Like, they're literally in the same group. Tarzan meets them both. And I think that her personality well contrasts Clayton's enough so that, like, she's obviously like the only woman in her trio. So that's like enough to kind of like perk you up a little bit. Be like, oh, like this is an important person because she's a woman in the only group of like dudes who's a human being, which of course we know Tarzan's the only human being in his group, which means like maybe they'll like, like each other. And they do. Spoiler alert. And I think that her personality is just like really cool. She's a little like clumsy and she's kind of like a little aloof, but she's definitely very sensitive and very passionate and very energetic and very like fun. and she's got that same sense of curiosity that Tarzan has, which I think is what kind of pulls them even closer together, is their just curiosity of each other's worlds, and how Tarzan is kind of an anomaly to her, and she's definitely an anomaly to him. He's never seen another human woman in his life, and I think that their relationship is really interesting, but just her character alone is really cool. I think especially for Disney, a lot of the female characters in there tend to follow, depending on the time, they tend to be a little one note, like, on all honesty. I think some of the princesses and stuff from the past, they were like cool, but they were also kind of, in my opinion, just kind of like the same character. Again, I should definitely mention, I haven't seen all of those movies, and I also haven't, if I have seen them, it's been a long time. Like, I really haven't seen them anytime recently. But from what I remember, like Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, they all kind of just occupy the same personality for the most part, like overall. And I think that in more modern movies, they're always like trying to be the woman. Like, they're always trying to be like the coolest thing about everything, and they're all spunky, and they're all got attitude, and they all have something to say. And I'm like, well, then you're all just kind of the same person if you all act the same way. Female characters that stand out to me that are just a little bit different from that norm, especially for Disney, would definitely be Jane, but also like Mulan and Jessie from Toy Story, and Eve from WALL-E. Like, there's this nice like window of specifically like female characters that I've just come to love and appreciate. And Jane, I think, would probably be on there. She's not like my favorite or anything, but she is definitely her own, and I like that about her a lot. That I think she's just kind of a well-crafted character and kind of perfect for Tarzan. I know that went a little off topic. It's talking about like gender in movies and shit like that, but it's not really like about that. What I'm saying is that she fits in this window of time nicely when these characters were kind of a thing. I think that she does a really good job I think they do a really good job writing her for what she was supposed to be in this movie, which of course is a love interest, but also just like a literal others, like the amalgamation of another world that Tarzan hasn't seen coming forth, and them kind of knowing that like she couldn't deliver that all on her own. Having her father and Clayton helps to bring that message through, and I think that's really cool. Okay, so I've mentioned him a couple times. Up next we have Clayton. Clayton is, I'm assuming, hired for protection by the professor and Jane, and he's basically just pure ambition without much of a care for like others or like the well-being of things. He's like dangerously arrogant and apparently a fairly skilled hunter. He's really brave, he's really tough, definitely like a macho man, and he has like not the most patience for things, which sucks for him because like the whole movie is basically him just trying to see gorillas. I think that he is brash and kind of I don't know if entitled's the word. He just kind of sticks his nose up at all these things, believing them to all just be kind of primitive, which he wouldn't be totally wrong because they're all literally monkeys, but oh my god, context. Quite literally, they are animals. Like they're he's literally surrounded by animals and just pure nature, right? Totally uncivilized. And I can understand why he would have that attitude towards things. Now we as the viewers see the apes not really as apes, but more like humans for some reason. I think it's, like personification of animals. It's Disney shit. Like these are animals, but they're not like animals, right? Like we care about a rat in Ratatouille, not because it acts like a rat, but because it acts like a person. I think the same thing is definitely going on here. It definitely is going on here. Clayton is quite literally disrespectful to the very characters that we care and love so far up to this point. And that helps to solidify how much we dislike him. It definitely comes as literally no surprise that he betrays Tarzan and his friends or whatever, because he clearly just doesn't give a shit about like anybody else but himself. I think that he sort of has this spirit and attitude of, I'm going to get what I need to get done, which anybody can respect. But he's also fairly brave in my opinion, but he's also just kind of like, he's kind of an asshole. He's also just genuinely uncaring of what's going on with other people. He just really cares about what he has to do, and that makes him a pretty good villain for this. Like I said, the plot's it's pretty cool. It's more about like, I care about these people, don't touch them, oh my gosh, please. But in that setting, it of course makes sense that the villain is someone who doesn't care about others. Like, that's in the definition of what would be a villain for this movie. And I think that they did a good job. I think Clayton fits it perfectly well. I also want to give credit to his like character design a little bit. I know we'll go into this in animation, but I think that he is very recognizable. I remember I played like Kingdom Hearts, and I could recognize Clayton like right away. I think he's like a shadowy character figure before you truly ever see him. But yeah, I think like they kind of nailed it. Like you can really tell it's him. You could tell it was him from far away or whatever. I think it's just well put together. I'm not like falling in love with this nigga like on the video. Clayton is he's great. he fits his role fine. Okay, Professor Daddy. So I have him down here as that. I just remember Jane calling him that. I don't know, not like Professor Daddy, just Daddy. So I was like, fuck it, he could just be that. He is a pretty pure-hearted old man with a lot of intelligence, but a bit of a fool. He's kind of like the funny. He's like, I think, a better Turk for Jane than Turk is for Tarzan. I think that most of his like foolish side comes from his little sense of wonder. Like he's always a little too open-minded, almost like he just kind of accepts the dumbest of theories that come into his mind. That's kind of what I would imagine he is. And at least from what I get from the movie, and I think that he shares that little sense of wonder with his daughter, and that gives them quite the cute little pairing, fuck man, what am I trying to say? Quite the cute little relationship between the two of them, and I think that he definitely serves his purpose well. I think that he's not supposed to be anything that's too important. He's not supposed to be the spotlight. He just is there to act as a bit of a buffer between Clayton and Jane. He is also kind of aloof and helps Tarzan, I think, to meet other men that just aren't Clayton, right? Jane is like kind of perfect for him, so he doesn't really need to worry about other women necessarily. Plus, even if there were other ones, like not like he would give a fuck, like she's there. But I think that the professor he's good. He deserves his spot well, I think, and I think I rather liked the character. He's kind of an Einstein-ish kind of archetype, I guess. I don't know if that's a word I'd want to use for that. Just, like he's kind of like an Einstein type of dude. Messy hair, old, kind of funny, kind of open to everything, but also sort of weirdly intelligent. So I don't know. I'm going way too far into his character, I think, right now. He does his job just fine. I think I like him a lot. Okay, so there's also another character in the movie that I don't really care to talk about that much. It's just the elephant. I literally don't even really have him down in my notes, just because he doesn't really serve any purpose, really. He's kind of almost an excuse, I think, to give Turk the ability to break them out of the ship. But other than that, I really don't feel like he does anything. He's not really contributing to any part of the story. He's not really important in the grand scheme of things. If you took him out of the movie, it really wouldn't make the biggest difference. Like if Turk just grabbed like a random elephant or like a rhino or something, or just did it himself with like a group of the other gorillas or something, like it really wouldn't have changed the movie if he wasn't in it. So to me, it's almost not even really worth talking about. I just think he was fairly unimportant, kind of a waste of a character. Just kind of there. I don't know. Just don't think it was really, I don't think he was all that important. So unimportant, in fact, that I don't even remember his name. I don't even know if he has one. I don't care to look. Whew. Okay, so that was definitely the bigger half of this video. I don't really care to go too much in depth on the music or the animation, but the plot and the characters definitely most of what I was going to be talking about. As far as the music goes, I feel like, so keep in mind I'm talking about this from the perspective of someone in 2022, and this movie came out a lot earlier than that. I am not looking at what the exact date is. I'll throw it up in a little bit. But I don't really feel like the music was anything crazy. Felt a little generic to me. Again, that could just be the fact that I've seen so many like movies and video games and things like that that use always like that, the jungle theme, right? Like if it's in literally always, if it's like in Africa, South America, or like the jungle of any kind, it's always some kind of like congas, drums, maybe a few, but like not a whole lot. of anything other than that. I don't think Tarzan has the who's and ha's, but I think they do have like a lot of like the usual jungle shit. I really don't know what else to call it other than that. So the music in and of itself was just like, kind of generic, nothing crazy. As far as the parts of the movie that aren't like jungle themed, there is a lot of Phil Collins in here, and I think it's really, really cool. I love it, and I think it's super good. It is a little kind of out of theme, but Phil Collins is a way, I think, of really making it work anyway. I think that a lot of the music from this movie is probably one of the biggest reasons people even care to remember it, because it's so great. It's like, I don't know how you say this, dated in like the best way, because nostalgia doesn't feel like quite the right word to use. I don't like watch Tarzan and get nostalgic all the time, but I do, I do in certain moments like I mentioned earlier, but I don't think that the music is what I'd call that. I just think it's like really good music that will be standing the test of time, and I really love it. There's just so much to love about the music in moments where Tarzan is beginning to fall in love with Jane, or at the very end of the movie, or in the very beginning of the movie when they're showing, the gorillas and the humans going through stuff. There's just so much. I'm literally hearing it in my mind right now as I'm talking about it, and I really do love it. Okay, the music that I really didn't care for would be Sorry Turk. He has a little number in the camp that the humans set up eventually, and I don't think it's great. It felt like they were trying to make the next big Disney hit, when really Phil Collins just outright stole that show, because I remember it, I don't really care to remember that. I mean, I do, but I just don't think it was something I cared about. I think there's a lot of wackiness and stuff that goes on in this part of the movie. It's small. It's just really just this little music number, and it's fun, I guess, for what it is, but it's a little, I don't know, man. It just wasn't hitting for me. I don't think it's like detrimental. I don't think I like absolutely hate this part of the movie, but I like for sure check out, like I definitely like check my phone and stuff while that part was going on. I've watched this movie a few times to make sure that I get this video down right. And I do have to say, every time that this little music number, I could feel it on its way in, I'm like, oh, here it comes. I kind of go like change the laundry or something. Like I just don't, it's not anything I'm like looking forward to. I think there's examples of other movies where those little numbers are parts that you are like, oh, remember this part. Like I love this part. I'm actually looking forward to this little music part. And I think like The Little Mermaid does a better job of this. Aladdin does a better job of this. Granted, they are very different movies, but I think that they are. I think that that's probably what they were trying to go for, is trying to keep a little bit of the magic Disney had with their music, and I just don't think it was here at all. I think it was kind of, not awful, just not anything to write home about. Now I want to move into the animation. I really don't have a whole lot to say here. I think that the animation of the movie is pretty good. I don't think there's really anything that stands out to me that was like, wow, that was this like terrible, awful mistake or anything. Nothing pulled me out of the movie animation-wise, not even a little bit. I'm not paying like this immense attention to it necessarily, but nothing really took me out of it at all. I think it's animation that definitely still holds up. If I had to compare it to anything, I feel like it's sort of kind of along the lines of like The Emperor's New Groove, or something along those lines. I almost said The Prince of Egypt, but I do think that The Prince of Egypt is a little bit more creative with their use of the animation. Tarzan, to me, they have like a creative little style. There's definitely a flair to it that feels Tarzan, especially like I said earlier in the character design of Clayton. I think that they pulled that off pretty well. They give Tarzan and Jane wonderful facial expressions. I think that they do a really good job with the movement of the gorillas and the water, Sabor the cat. And they do like a pretty, and by good, I know it sounds kind of vague, they do a pretty almost realistic job of that. Like they capture a lot of these really realistic facial expressions, movement, environment type stuff. What I do want to say though is there's just not like anything beyond that. So it's pretty good. It still holds together today and here in 2022, but I don't think that it's anything that I wouldn't watch Tarzan for the animation. That is something I think I can stand by for sure. There is one instance for sure that I think is really cool that they do with the animation. I think they start playing with their lighting a little bit towards the end with a red flare that starts to light everything up this bright red, and they make good use of those shadows, and they manage to still maintain their feeling of how grounded everything is. And there's a lot of different colors going on in there, right? There's like greens and browns and blacks and whites and peaches and things like that. But like they still manage to make everything feel like it's that thing, just kind of redder. And I know that almost sounds like, yeah, no shit, all you have to do is make it red. But like it feels like they still retain their quality.
Sorry, somehow my mic got cut out, but basically, yeah, I just think that they retain their quality during this little part of the movie. But yeah, that was basically all I wanted to say at that last minute there.
Okay, so to wrap everything up, I want to talk about the plot, the characters, the music, and the animation really quickly to just kind of give a brief summary of the whole video. Basically, the plot is okay. It is a little aimless in my opinion, but overall I think it keeps you engaged throughout the movie. But what definitely I think holds your attention would be the characters and the music. I think that the characters in this movie are fairly well acted, fairly well animated, and I believe that they stay consistent throughout the movie. They don't do anything that's like dramatically different than what they would do, or something that they should, and or ignore something that they could do. Stay fairly consistent. I don't think that they necessarily like don't grow. I just think that like they grow in a way that makes sense if they do, and they most certainly do not if it doesn't make any sense. Fuck, my AC just turned on out of nowhere. Okay, I'm back. So the characters in this movie are pretty good. There's nothing that they do to really like betray themselves or something. I think the writers kept them fairly consistent, so kudos to that for sure. I don't think that there's necessarily a character that stands out to me as like a favorite. I guess maybe the love interest, but I don't think that the rest of the cast necessarily is my favorite or anything. Like I don't have I usually have a few characters that I like, but they're all okay. I don't really have a favorite per se, except maybe the Levy. But other than that one, I have like not really any like least favorites. I guess based on the words least favorite, I have about two. As I explained, they're just kind of either unimportant or they would be obnoxious. But again, it's not so bad or anything like that. The music in the movie is pretty average, pretty generic, and when it's not, it's pretty fantastic. Only once does it really get to be something that I could do without, but the rest is either really good or ignorable and generic. The animation in the movie definitely holds up today, and I think that if I had to give this entire movie a rating, it would have to probably be around like a 6.5 out of 10. I know that sounds low, but to me a movie's got to be like pretty bad to get like a 4 or 5. And I think the only reason it isn't like a 7.5 or an 8 is just because the plot to me is a little it's just a little aimless. It's maybe it suffers from a bit of a pacing issue in my opinion a little bit. I don't think I touched on this, but I don't think I mentioned this. I think that there's a bit of a weird pacing sometimes. It seems like it almost goes really fast toward the end of the movie, and then it's like really dragging in the beginning. So that's probably one thing that stands out for me. I also think it could do without some fairly unimportant characters, or it could stand to make our protagonists just a little bit more interesting. But yeah, so that's the whole movie for me. If you guys have anything to say about this, you guys being like one or two people, I don't really care. I mean, I still want to know what you think. If you've seen Tarzan, if you haven't, let me know if you're either going to or what you thought about it. And yeah, the target audience I would say is for kids, but I certainly still enjoyed it both as a child and as an adult. So I definitely would recommend this to a friend. It'd be kind of weird though, because most people have already seen the movie. But if you're just like having like a little movie night, don't really know what to watch, Tarzan's not such a bad idea, especially for something like a date or just to watch with your kids. So yeah, I'm telling you, man, people who clean around here, they're really loud. Anyway, love you guys. I hope you have an awesome time.
Once again, my mic ended up cutting out, but I just wanted to say that I appreciate you getting this far through the video, made it all the way to the end. I love you. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, like and subscribe if you can. Leave a comment on anything that you want to tell me. The video was shit, that's fine. Or if you really enjoyed it, if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. I personally plan on doing far shorter reviews. I don't think I really want to keep on making things that are almost an hour long. If that's just how it tends to go, then fine. But probably a lot smaller projects than this from here on out. But yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for making it this far. And I hope you have an awesome day.